Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a little bit of a tutorial on how to get started with Inventor. So with Inventor, first, obviously, you need to open up the software. Now we're going to begin with making a simple part. So when we go over to this new panel, we're going to hit the first button, New Part. And what that's going to do is going to load all of our information. It's going to open up the software and give us a blank part screen that we have here. Now to go ahead and get started, we're going to build a model that's going to look like this, okay? But we need some dimensions in order to do that. So we'll use these dimensions here. So we'll be flipping back and forth between those screens. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create this Z shape here in my model. Now to do that, I need to get a sketcher screen. In order to do that, I'm going to have to start a 2D sketch, and I'm going to have to choose a plane to start it in. Okay. Now, to go ahead and do that, I'm going to draw my shape. I'm going to sketch it. So you can do it with lines. I'm going to use 3 rectangles just to make it a little bit faster for myself. And you can see that I have my Z shape. Again, you can use the lines if you like. And now I need to go back and I need to trim things. That way I have my shape. Now once I have my shape, I have to make sure that it's the right size. So the whole function of the sketcher is to sketch it first and then size it appropriately. Okay, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to see how wide this thing is by looking at my Word document. And it's 1.75 on the top. So I'm going to add a dimension here. And you can see I'm way off, but that's okay. It's just a sketch. And if I change it to 1.75, that first dimension is going to automatically scale my sketch, so it's okay. And looking back, you can see that the bottom is 2. So I'll go back and I will add a dimension to the bottom. Change that to 2. Looking at my other dimensions, it looks like these 3 pieces are 0.25 thick. So I'll go ahead and dimension each one of those. 0.25, 0.25, and 0.25, which I already have. Great. Now the last dimension I need is this 1.88. So I'll go ahead and dimension that from the bottom to the top, and that's 1.88. Now that all my dimensions are complete, what I can do, if I wanted to move that back down, I could. I'm going to go ahead and check Finish Sketch, and it's going to take me back to the main panel. Now I'm ready to actually create a 3D shape because I have geometry. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the Extrude tool. Now I can't remember exactly how thick that is. If I take a look at this radius, this outside radius is 1/2. That means that this diameter is 1, which means my thickness is 1, and that's already set. So you can see that what it did is it already highlighted my closed shape. Any shapes that you draw in your sketcher must be closed or else you will not be able to extrude a 3D part. So I click that and I hit OK, and there we go. There's my first 3D shape. Now if I take a look here, I've got a few more things that I have to do. I have to round the corners and I have to put in some circles. So what I'm going to do for circles, you can do those a couple different ways. You can do those with a revolution or you can do those with a hole. So I'm going to go back to my part. We're going to use holes. I'm going to show you how to use holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to put a point here. So I'm going to go to Start 2D Sketch. I'm going to pick this top plane and I'm going to insert a point here. Now again, it's a sketcher, so I'm just going to place it first, and then I can dimension it second. And I'm going to change that to 0.5 because it's going to be centrally located from that edge and from that edge, 0.5. Okay, finished. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my hole in there. Now my hole, if I go back to my drawing, it looks like I have a counterbore. I have a counterbore of 0.5 and it's 0.125 deep, and then the hole diameter itself is 0.25. Okay, so I'm going to change that here. Okay, this is going to change sizes, and my depth is going to be 0.125, and my hole diameter is correct, and I'll say OK, and that's done. Now, if I hold my shift key down and I hit my center button, I can rotate the part just to make sure that it looks good. And that looks really great so far. So we're all set. We have another hole that we have to put down here. Okay, and if I don't like the way my part is looking, I can go over to this here and I can hit my home button, and that'll reset my rotation, and it'll also zoom everything where it needs to be. So I'm going to go start 2D sketch. I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to go to this particular plane. I'm going to place the point. And by the way, you cannot save the items. You cannot save your files if you're in Sketcher. So while we're in Sketcher, we cannot save the part. We have to be out of Sketcher. So dimension, I'm going to put my dimension in again. That is 1/2 of an inch from the end. And it's also centered. Here we go. And I'm going to go ahead and correct my size, and it's properly located. And then I can use the hole button again to put my hole, except this is going to pass all the way through, and that's the correct size. And since I only have one point there, it automatically goes to that point, and I can say OK. Now we're not quite finished. If we take a look here, we'll see that I've got my ends rounded, and that's very easy to accomplish. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the fillet tool, okay, and I'm going to select the edges that I want to put the fillet on. So that's this edge, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to 0.5, and you can see it gives you a preview of what it's going to look like. All right, so those two edges on the bottom, and I can pick those two edges on the top, and there we are finished. So that's what our part looks like. If you take a look, I've taken care of all my dimensions. Okay, and I can rotate that to look around to make sure that it looks correct, and hit my home key, and I'm all set.